Eat, Pray, Love. One Woman's Search for Everything Across Italy, India, and Indonesia, by Elizabeth Gilbert. Introduction. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. The world is asleep, but you're not. You're on a cold bathroom floor, hiding from your own life, and a thought you've been trying to bury for months finally breaks through the surface. It's a quiet, terrifying whisper. I don't want this anymore. This is where our story begins. Not in a boardroom, not on a stage, but on the floor of a bathroom in a big, beautiful house in the suburbs of New York. The woman on the floor is Elizabeth Gilbert, and by all accounts, she has it all. A husband of 8 years, a successful writing career, a lovely home, the perfect life she had meticulously built, brick by brick. But that life had become a cage. And the person staring back at her from the reflection in the tiles was a stranger. She didn't want to be married anymore. She didn't want the big house. She didn't want to have a baby, something everyone, including herself, had always assumed was the next logical step. The life that was supposed to be her dream felt like a death sentence. What do you do when the blueprint for your life, the one you followed so carefully, leads you to a place of profound despair? What happens when you achieve everything you thought you wanted, only to find that you want none of it? This is the central question of Elizabeth Gilbert's phenomenal memoir, Eat, Pray, Love. This isn't just a travel book, it's a roadmap for finding yourself when you are utterly and completely lost. It became a global phenomenon, a New York Times bestseller that spent years on the list, because it gave a voice to a silent ache that so many of us feel but are too afraid to name. It's the story of one woman's decision to tear down her life in order to rebuild it, piece by piece, on her own terms. Over the next few minutes, we're going to journey with Gilbert on her search for everything. We'll travel with her across Italy, India, and Indonesia. And I promise you, by the end of our time together, you will understand not just how to find pleasure, devotion, and balance in your own life, but you will discover the profound courage it takes to listen to that quiet voice inside you, and, finally, give it what it truly wants. Book Summary. The story of Eat, Pray, Love doesn't begin with a grand adventure, but with a quiet collapse. At 31 years old, Gilbert found herself trapped in a life that looked perfect from the outside but felt hollow on the inside. For months, she was consumed by anxiety and a deep, sorrowful confusion. She was crying so often, she describes it as a great lake of tears spreading across her bathroom floor. The only thing more unthinkable than leaving her marriage was staying. One night, in the depths of this despair, she did something she had never done before. She started to pray. Not in a formal, religious way, but in a raw, desperate plea to a God she wasn't even sure she believed in. She simply said, "Hello, God. I'm Liz. I'm in serious trouble. Please tell me what to do." And in the silence that followed, a voice answered. It wasn't a booming, cinematic voice from the heavens. It was her own voice, but calm, and wise, and compassionate. And it said something incredibly simple: "Go back to bed, Liz." That was it. The answer wasn't to leave or to stay. It wasn't a grand solution. It was a small act of self-compassion. The voice told her that she didn't need to have all the answers right now, at 3 o'clock in the morning. She just needed to rest. This moment was the beginning of a conversation, a dialogue with her own inner wisdom that would guide her through the wreckage to come. 7 months later, she did leave her husband. What followed wasn't relief, but a brutal, soul-crushing divorce that dragged on for nearly 2 years. The process was a shock. She and her husband, once the people who knew each other best in the world, became incomprehensible strangers. He refused to let her go easily, and the battle left her emotionally and financially shattered. And then, there was David. As her marriage was ending, Gilbert dove headfirst into a passionate, all-consuming love affair. David was a handsome, charismatic actor and writer. In her words, she clung to him as if he were the last helicopter pulling out of Saigon. He was her escape, her salvation, her hope for happiness. For a while, their love was electrifying. They had more fun waiting in line at the DMV than most couples have on their honeymoon. But desperate love, as she soon learned, is a dangerous game. She had invented a character for David, demanding that he be the hero who would save her. When he inevitably failed to play that role, when he began to pull away from the sheer intensity of her need, the relationship crumbled. The more he retreated, the needier she became, and the needier she became, the further he ran. She describes it as the final destination of infatuation, the complete and merciless devaluation of self. Losing David, on top of losing her marriage, her home, and her sense of identity, was simply too much. She was a ruin. And it was from this place of absolute rock bottom that a new idea began to form. It started as a whisper, a strange desire she'd had for years. She wanted to learn Italian. It was impractical, sure, but it was the only thing she could imagine that might bring her a sliver of pleasure. At the same time, another path was opening. Through David, she had been introduced to an Indian guru, a spiritual teacher whose photograph she saw one night in his apartment. The moment she saw the photo, her heart announced, "I want a spiritual teacher." She began attending meditation and chanting sessions in New York and felt a profound sense of peace she had never known. And finally, there was a prophecy. On a magazine assignment in Bali, she met a ninth-generation medicine man, a tiny, toothless, Yoda-like man named Kedet Lear. He read her palm and told her two things: that she would lose all her money, and that she would one day return to Bali and study with him for several months. Slowly, these three disparate threads began to weave themselves into a plan. A year of travel. A year dedicated to exploring one aspect of herself in three different places. She would go to Italy to study the art of pleasure. She would go to India to study the art of devotion. And she would go to Indonesia, to Bali, to learn the art of balancing the two. Italy, India, Indonesia. The three I's. A journey of self-discovery. Just as the medicine man had predicted, the divorce settlement cost her nearly everything she had. But in a staggering miracle, a publisher bought the book she planned to write about her journey, giving her just enough money to finance her year of freedom. And so, she packed 2 suitcases and flew to Rome. Part 1. Italy. Her mission in Italy was simple: pleasure. For 4 months, she gave herself permission to do nothing but enjoy herself. This was a radical act for a woman raised by hard-working, Puritan-descended parents, a woman whose life had been a constant to-do list. The American mindset, she realized, is one of entertainment-seeking, not pleasure-seeking. We work ourselves to the bone and then collapse in a coma of distraction. We don't know how to practice what the Italians call bel far niente, the beauty of doing nothing. At first, her guilt was overwhelming. She felt she needed to justify her pleasure, to turn it into a homework assignment. But Italy and its people gave her permission. When she told her new Italian friends she was there for 4 months of pure pleasure, they didn't judge her. They simply said, "Congratulations, go for it." So she did. She enrolled in a language school, and every new Italian word felt like a singing sparrow, a magic trick, a truffle. She spent her days wandering aimlessly through Rome, getting lost and being completely happy about it. She didn't visit a single museum, except for the National Museum of Pasta. Her twin majors, she declared, were eating and speaking Italian. She made friends. There was Luca Spaghetti, yes, that was his real name, a tax accountant who was her guide to the best, most authentic Roman food. He and his friends were fiercely loyal to their city and their soccer team, Lazio. After a devastating loss, they didn't go to a bar to get drunk like American sports fans, they went to a bakery to eat cream puffs. Luca found it hilarious that she was planning to go to an ashram in India. Watching her devour another plate of pasta, he'd mockingly call her Gandhi. Then there were the twins, Giovanni and Dario. They became her tandem exchange partners, meeting a few times a week to practice Italian and English. Giovanni, the sweet, shy one, became a dear friend. Gilbert writes about her secret wish that he would kiss her, but she had made a vow to remain celibate for the year. She had spent 2 decades entangled in dramas with men, losing herself in each new relationship. She describes herself as a permeable membrane, disappearing completely into the person she loved. This year was about discovering who she was when she wasn't trying to merge with someone else. Her journey into pleasure wasn't without its shadows. About 10 days into her trip, her old companions, depression and loneliness, found her. They showed up in an elegant Italian garden at dusk and settled in. She had stopped taking her antidepressants, thinking, "How could I be depressed here?" But she learned that you can't just run away from your sorrow. She had to face it. Instead of spiraling, she turned to her private journal and reopened that conversation with her inner voice of wisdom. That voice reassured her, "I'm here. I love you. There's nothing you can ever do to lose my love." And in the morning, the goons of depression and loneliness were gone. Gilbert's time in Italy was a process of reconnecting with her body and her senses. She gained 23 pounds and bought a new pair of jeans she called her last month in Italy jeans. She was unapologetic. She wrote, "I exist more now than I did 4 months ago." She was healing herself, not through discipline or therapy, but through the simple, harmless pleasure of a perfect plate of pasta, a beautiful new word, or a scoop of pistachio gelato at 9:30 in the morning. As her time in Italy came to an end, she felt a profound shift. She had collected herself into someone more intact, someone who understood that the appreciation of pleasure can be an anchor of one's humanity. It was the first step in a much longer journey, but she was no longer the broken woman on the bathroom floor. She had found her appetite for life again. Part 2. India. From the land of earthly pleasure, Gilbert traveled to a place of spiritual discipline, an ashram in a remote village in India. Her goal here was devotion. If Italy was about indulging the senses, India was about mastering the mind. The transition was stark. Life at the ashram was rigorous. The day began at 3 a.m. with chanting and meditation and ended at 9 p.m. The food was simple and vegetarian. She was assigned a job, her seva, or selfless service, scrubbing the temple floors for several hours a day. Her mission was to find God, but her biggest obstacle was her own monkey mind, the endless stream of thoughts that swung from limb to limb, never resting in the present moment. Meditation, she discovered, was incredibly difficult. She couldn't get her mind to be still. It would get bored, angry, anxious, or all of the above. She writes, "Your emotions are the slaves to your thoughts, and you are the slave to your emotions." The goal of yoga, she learned, is not just about becoming flexible. The word itself means union. The task is to find union between mind and body, between the individual and God, by hauling your attention away from brooding over the past and worrying about the future. In her struggle, she found an unlikely guide, a man from Austin, Texas, named Richard. Richard was a salty, plain-spoken, former junkie and alcoholic who had been through the ringer of life and come out the other side with a deep, unshakable wisdom. He saw right through her struggles and her control issues. He gave her the nickname Groceries after watching her eat, and he became her spiritual big brother. When she complained that she couldn't stop obsessing over David, Richard told her that a true soulmate isn't your perfect fit. A true soulmate is a mirror, the person who shows you everything that is holding you back, who brings you to your own attention so you can change your life. He said, David's purpose was to shake you up, then introduce you to your spiritual master and beat it. That was his job, and he did great, but now it's over. You're like a dog at the dump, baby. You're just licking at an empty tin can, trying to get more nutrition out of it. His advice was simple but profound. If you want to control things, work on your mind. That's the only thing you should be trying to control. You gotta learn how to select your thoughts, he told her, just the same way you select what clothes you're gonna wear every day. This became her central practice. She began monitoring her thoughts, vowing, I will not harbor unhealthy thoughts anymore. She pictured the harbor of her mind and instituted stricter laws about which thoughts were allowed to enter. Warships of abusive thoughts, slave ships of old grudges, all were turned away. Her greatest challenge at the ashram was a daily hour-and-a-half-long chant called the Guru Gita. It was 182 verses of impenetrable Sanskrit, and she hated it. It made her sweat. It made her angry. It felt like torture. A monk advised her to stick with it, especially because she had such an extreme reaction. If something is rubbing so hard against you, he said, you can be sure it's working on you. One morning, after being accidentally locked in her room, she literally jumped out of a second-story window to get to the chant on time. Bleeding down her leg, she realized she needed to change her relationship with the practice. Instead of fighting it, she decided to dedicate the hymn to someone she loved purely and protectively, her 8-year-old nephew, Nick. She poured all her love for him into the song, and suddenly, the hour-and-a-half felt like 10 minutes. In that moment of selfless devotion, she found her breakthrough. She had planned to stay at the ashram for only 6 weeks and then travel around India. But Richard advised her to stay put. Forget about sightseeing, he said. You're on a spiritual journey, baby. Don't cop out. You go set your lily-white ass down in that meditation cave. And I promise you this, you're gonna start seeing some stuff that's so damn beautiful it'll make you want to throw rocks at the Taj Mahal. She stayed. And in the silence and stillness, she finally had her transcendent experience. One afternoon, in the back of the temple, she was pulled through the wormhole of the Absolute. She left her body, her ego, and stepped into the void. It was a place of limitless peace and wisdom. It was God. And she was part of it. The experience was not euphoric or exciting. It was just obvious. Like seeing through an optical illusion for the first time. The deepest love she had ever known. The moment she thought, I want to hold on to this, she began to fall out of it. The desires of the ego, I don't want, pulled her back to her limited self. But she came back with a new understanding. That state of bliss was not something that could be taken away from her, because it was always there. She just had to practice returning to it. As her time in India drew to a close, she found her word. In a book, she came across the Sanskrit word anti-vasan. It means one who lives at the border. It described an ancient spiritual seeker who lived at the edge of the forest, between the village of worldly life and the deep woods of transcendence. An in-betweener. A student on the ever-shifting border of the unknown. That, she realized, was her. Part 3, Indonesia. The final leg of her journey took her to Bali, Indonesia, to find the old medicine man, Ketat Lear, and learn the art of balance. This was the quest to synthesize the pleasure of Italy with the devotion of India. She arrived with no plan, only a prophecy. She found her way to Ketat's village, and after a moment of confusion, he remembered her. You, the book writer from New York. You came back. Her relief was immense. Her apprenticeship began. Every day, she would visit him for a few hours. He didn't teach her complex rituals. He taught her a simple meditation: sit in silence and smile. Smile with face, he said. Smile with mind, and good energy will come. Even smile in your liver. In Bali, she found a life of simple, easy balance. She rented a small house in the rice fields, surrounded by a garden of tropical flowers. She spent her mornings meditating, her afternoons with Kedet, and her evenings reading or talking with new friends. One of those friends was a single mother and healer named Wayan. Wayan's story was heartbreaking. She had divorced an abusive husband, a scandalous act in the tightly knit Balinese culture, and was now struggling to raise her charismatic daughter, Tuti, and 2 orphans she had taken in off the street. They were facing eviction, with nowhere to go. Little Tuti had found a single square of blue tile from a construction site and would sit on it for hours, pretending she was in her own house with a pretty blue floor. Hearing this story, Gilbert felt a powerful urge to help. On a whim, she sent a mass email to everyone she knew, asking them to donate to a fund to buy Wayan a house for her upcoming birthday. The response was a global smothering of generosity. In 1 week, friends, family, and total strangers from around the world raised nearly $18,000. The process of actually buying the house, however, became a surreal journey into the complexities of Balinese culture, a world of Taksu spiritual energy, auspicious dates, and delicate negotiations. It was a stressful, confusing, and often hilarious ordeal that required a bit of emergency Balinese real estate maneuvering. But in the end, Wayan and her children got their home. It was during this time that Gilbert's vow of celibacy came to an end. Through friends, she met Felipe, a handsome, silver-haired Brazilian man in his early 50s who had come to Bali to recover from his own hard divorce. He was kind, gentle, and utterly smitten with her. Their courtship was slow and deliberate. She was hesitant, afraid of losing the hard-won balance and autonomy she had finally found. "I'm the cake that just came out of the oven," she told him. "It still needs some more time to cool before it can be frosted." He was patient. He told her, "Darling, for you, I am even willing to suffer. Whatever pain happens to us in the future, I accept it already, just for the pleasure of being with you now." One night, he said simply, "That's enough, darling. Come to my bed now." And she did. She had not been rescued by a prince, she was the administrator of her own rescue. But now, she was ready to share her life. The book ends with Gilbert and Felipe on a small boat, heading to a tiny remote island. The same island where, 2 years earlier, she had gone for 10 days of silent retreat at the absolute lowest point of her life. Now, she was returning, happy, healthy, and in love. She reflects on a Zen Buddhist belief that an oak tree is created by 2 forces at once. The acorn, full of potential, and the future tree itself, which wants so badly to exist that it pulls the acorn into being. She wonders if the happy, balanced woman she had become was the one who had been calling the younger, struggling her forward all along, whispering, "Grow. Change. Come and meet me here, where I already exist." As the boat anchors, they have to jump off and wade to shore. Felipe, whose first language is Portuguese, doesn't speak Italian. But just as they are about to leap into the sea together, she says to him her favorite Italian word, a word that perfectly captures the spirit of her entire journey. Attraversiamo. Let's cross over. Commentary. So, what do we take away from this incredible journey? What is the enduring lesson of eat, pray, love? At its heart, this is a story about permission. It's about giving yourself permission to be unhappy with a life that looks perfect on paper. It's about giving yourself permission to get lost, to dismantle everything, in order to find what truly fits. So many of us live our lives according to a script we didn't write. We follow the path of expectation, get the degree, get the job, get married, buy the house, and we wonder why we feel so disconnected from it all. Gilbert's story is a powerful reminder that it is not only okay, but essential, to stop and ask yourself, does this life resemble me? The journey she takes is not just a physical one across 3 continents, it's an internal one across 3 fundamental aspects of the human experience. In Italy, she teaches us that pleasure is not a frivolous luxury, but a vital nutrient for a starved soul. Bel far niente, the beauty of doing nothing, is a radical act in our productivity-obsessed world. It's about savoring the moment, whether it's a perfect bite of spaghetti or the music of a new language, without guilt or justification. In India, she shows us that devotion is not about blind faith, but about the disciplined work of taming the mind. Her struggles with meditation are so deeply relatable. That monkey mind she talks about is something we all live with. Her journey teaches us that spirituality isn't about achieving a perfect state of bliss overnight. It's about showing up, day after day, scrubbing the temple floors of our own minds, and learning to select our thoughts with the same care we use to select our clothes. It's about finding compassion for ourselves in the struggle. And in Bali, she finds the synthesis, balance. This isn't a perfect, static equilibrium. It's dynamic. As Wei-Yin tells her, to lose balance sometimes for love is part of living a balanced life. Balance is about holding both pleasure and devotion, work and rest, solitude and connection, in a beautiful, ever-shifting dance. It's about finding your center, your own internal hub of calmness, and returning to it again and again. So, how can you apply these ideas to your own life, starting today? First, ask yourself that radical question Gilbert asked herself in Italy: what would you enjoy doing today? And I mean really enjoy, without any thought of productivity or obligation. Start small. Maybe it's taking 10 minutes to sit in the sun and do nothing. Maybe it's learning one new word in a language you've always wanted to speak. Give yourself one small, harmless pleasure today. Second, practice what Gilbert calls diligent joy. Happiness, she learns, is not a stroke of luck. It's the consequence of personal effort. You have to participate relentlessly in the manifestations of your own blessings. When a moment of contentment arrives, don't just let it pass. Acknowledge it. Memorize it. Offer up a small prayer of gratitude for it. Seal that joy into your soul. Finally, think about your word. In Rome, Gilbert's friend told her every city has a word. Rome's was sex. New York's was Eve. What's your word right now? Is it stress? Is it hope? Is it fear? And more importantly, what do you want it to be? Gilbert found her word was antivasan, the border dweller, the perpetual student. Just the act of searching for your word can begin to orient your life in a new direction. That was a summary of Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. We've journeyed through the main landscapes of her story today, but let me be honest with you, a summary is like looking at a travel brochure. The real magic happens when you take the trip yourself. It's in the quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or a simple phrase connects with something deep inside you, that true transformation occurs. This overview is designed to help you decide if this is a journey worth your time. If anything we've explored today has sparked a sense of recognition or curiosity in you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning, it's an experience that can genuinely give you the courage to find your own path. A link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It lets us know that these stories matter, and it ensures you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book. Let's keep growing together.